Hey everybody, welcome back to the IDP Plus podcast. I'm your host, Johnny, and on this episode, we are talking part two of our Dynasty Linebacker rankings. That's right, this is part two, 19 through 36. If you missed the first 18, Axton covered that in his last video, so no problem. Go to IDP Plus on YouTube to find that video on our channel, or even better yet, go to Twitter, follow Axton at AxemanIDP, and he has reposted that video, so you can find it there easily too. So this is part two, 19 through 36. And if you stick around, I have some honorable mentions at the end. Let's get this money. So this is my favorite kind of part of linebackers, the bottom half, the later round guys, LB2s, LB3s that maybe can ascend and become even more. So rule of thumb, whether it's redraft, I know we're talking dynasty, but either format, I do not like to spend a high price tag on linebackers. I like to do my research, find the nitty gritty guys, the next man up, and stock my offense and get those defensive backs, defensive linemen and linebackers later. And that's exactly what I was tasked to do, is to find these LB2s who have upside. That's what Axton and I did in our rankings. Just to preface, Axton and I did a top 40 consensus rankings of our own and then combined them to be consensus rankings, I should say. So it's about an average, between our two rankings, this compiled list. Without further ado, I will start sharing my screen to see the first tier of our our part two dynasty linebacker rankings. So we're going to talk it off. We're going to start it off talking about EJ Speed. EJ Speed started off tremendously last season in 2024. He had the first four games were all double-digit tackle games. I had done rankings for our site. I had him neck and neck up there with Zaire Franklin. I mean, he was that much of a banger. To start it off with four double-digit tackle games. Not to mention before years prior, we've seen EJ Speed get that celeb shot, start a game, and get 8 to 10 tackles. So this was kind of what we were expecting from EJ Speed when he became the starter. He had 8 double-digit tackles in those 15 games. He missed 2 games. Still productive. To say he had more than half of his games with double-digit tackles is phenomenal. And that's kind of what's keeping him up in these rankings, because as of recent, when I say recent, the home stretch of last season, despite missing a game, that didn't help. But also maybe the knee injury that he had was hurting his production. Definitely faded in the second half of the season. Zaire Franklin was the top dog there, no doubt about it. Returned to form. So with EJ Speed, what knocks him down is the fact that, number one, he is not in Indianapolis anymore. He is now in Houston. Indianapolis, I believe that they thought he had missed tackle issues, coverage issues, so they moved on from EJ Speed. He's still 29 years old, still in the prime of his career. I do not like the move to Houston as much for him. We also have 3 other vets in Houston to go along with now EJ Speed and Azeez Al-Shaair, Christian Harris, and Henry 2020. These guys have all performed. So, EJ Speed, they brought him in for a reason, but this is his first year with the team. I'm sure Azeez Al-Shaair is not going to lose his spot. I don't know that EJ Speed is going to be a 99 snap share guy like he was in Indianapolis this past year. So a little bit interesting here. If you have EJ Speed, I would not, go out and send a trade for him. He's definitely, I don't think he's going to repeat especially the starting performance, the first games with double-digit tackles. If you have him, you're probably holding. He could easily repeat last year's performance if he gets that starting, assignment. But nothing is given here with EJ Speed. So when he's on the field, he's a tackle machine. There's no doubt about it. He really doesn't do much else as far as sacks or interceptions, those kind of splash plays. That's okay. We're talking linebackers, and the thing we should be focused on is the tackles. So EJ Speed in a little bit of a flux here. I would rank him down. I would rank him higher, actually, if he was still in Indianapolis, but that is not the case. So he slides down the rankings, but still in front of number 20. We had Jack Campbell. Jack Campbell is somebody who I was actually lower on. He was number 27 in my rankings, while Axton had him at 16. And I get it. There's still a lot of hype for Jack Campbell, and I'm glad this is a player that we, contrast on, because Jack Campbell's still young. He's 24 years old. He played all 17 games for the first time in his 2-year career last year. He started all 17 games as well. He had 131 tackles. 69 of those were solos, 62 were assisted. He did come down a little bit in the sack department with 1.5, but still, he had 5 pass defense. He had a forced fumble nonetheless. And Jack Campbell, no doubt, is on the ascension upwards. He's young here. We're talking dynasty linebackers. Probably has a good 8 to 10 years left. But being on that Detroit team, they still have Alex Anzalone. I know he's in a contract dispute of his own right now. Jack Campbell is just, for me, he's just got to prove it. He's supposed to have been a banger for 2 years now. Kind of as a fringe LB2, really hasn't lived up to that high price tag yet. So Jack Campbell, I can't draft him in Dynasty right now and say he's going to be an LB1. So obviously, we have him in the LB2 rankings, but nothing's guaranteed. To me, it's like he has ascended in the tackle department, jumped up from not even 100 to 131. So maybe he keeps growing, and that's Axton's side of the bill. He sees him, as a little bit upper level. He's had him ranked higher, but for me, I need guys who I can draft right now and set it and forget it. There's always going to be guys in Dynasty and redraft that come out of nowhere. Your Jamie Sherwoods. So I keep that in mind when I'm thinking about a guy like Jack Campbell. I really don't want to pay for the name. He's somebody that if he's going to go off for 150 tackles, I'm going to watch it happen. He's not going to be on my team, and I'm going to say I was wrong. But until that happens, Jack Campbell, I'm not going to fall for the hype again on him. So he moved down probably from last year to this year in the rankings, but still has a lot of upside. It's definitely still can rank him higher, in your own rankings. But let's be real. Let's call a spade a spade. Jack Campbell has not lived up to the hype yet. And Alex Anzalone is still there, was even dealing with injuries last year of his own. So I think, if we would have saw Jack Campbell seize the opportunity, it would have been by now. But still a lot of upside. Moving on to number 21, that is Nakobe Dean. Nakobe Dean played 15 games last year, 128 tackles, was phenomenal at it, especially in stretches there. He dealt with injuries as well, which is not strange when it comes to Nakobe Dean. We know that's his kicker is can he stay on the field, but he did average 8.5 tackles when he did play. The bad thing about Nakobe Dean is at the end of the season in the playoffs, he tore his patellar tendon in his knee, which is a huge injury. He is definitely going to be out to start 2025. I'm reading tweets and reports about this linebacking room, how they brought in Jihad Campbell, and they still have Jeremiah Trotter. So there's rumblings in Philly that maybe the Eagles are already starting to move on from Nakobe Dean, which definitely drops him in my mindset. I personally had Nakobe Dean ranked at 25. Axton had him at 19. So definitely somebody who, if he's healthy, he's only 24 years old. If he gets healthy and stays healthy and holds that job down, he can definitely move up to the top 15. He's that kind of player. He checks the bill, volume tackler, gets at the quarterback. Zach Bond was there doing his thing, being the LB1, and Nakobe Dean still had an outstanding year. So there's definitely room for the second linebacker in Philly to have production. But the real question is, are they going to move on from Nakobe Dean? They brought Jihad Campbell. I'm not so sure he's going to be the same kind of player as Nakobe Dean, a banger in the middle. I expect Jihad Campbell really to start getting looks primarily on the edge, unless really they really need him in the middle. They deem that. But I think Jihad Campbell's more of an edge player right now. I'm not really concerned with him playing the Nakobe Dean role. That could change. I could be wrong on that. But right now, as it stands, Nakobe Dean is a kind of a question mark. When is he coming back? Is he going to do well when he comes back? Is he going to hold his job down, or is he going to fall out of favor, kind of like Devin White did there, and be a question mark? But keep in mind, we are talking dynasty. This year, it kind of throw an asterisk on Nakobe Dean. Don't expect much out of him. If it's redraft, he's not even on this list. But because it's dynasty, it doesn't really matter if Nakobe Dean, falls out of favor and goes somewhere else. He's young enough where he can still, prove his health, get back to form, and go kill it elsewhere. So hopefully it is in Philadelphia again where he, makes his money. But don't be surprised if he can go somewhere else and be productive too. So we're not completely giving up on Nakobe Dean yet. We still like him, for a good 6 to 8 more years if he can stay healthy. But if he doesn't, if this injury was big, that might be all she wrote for Nakobe Dean. So a big question mark here, but we can't fade the upside of what he's proved this past year. And he was a big prospect as well. So he finally made good. It's a shame that that's the way the cards felt for Dean, but it is what it is. He's still here in our rankings. We still get to mention his name. Still pretty high nonetheless. Moving on, number 22, Patrick Queen, the epitome of a LB2. Doesn't matter if it was in Baltimore, now it's in Pittsburgh. I actually, made the case last year of like what Pittsburgh linebackers for fantasy have been good. Patrick Queen was good. He was better than I expected, to be honest with you. Stayed, pretty healthy, was pretty consistent. Wasn't, we were thinking, are the tackles going to go up? Are they going to go down? It went up by a little bit, leaving Roquan Smith's side. So that was, a pleasing sight to see. And Patrick Queen, he did defy the, can we have a good LB for IDP in Pittsburgh? Yes, we can. I don't think we can have two, but that's a story for another time. That has nothing to do with Patrick Queen. He is, a solid player. He had a solid first year with Pittsburgh. He had less solo tackles and more assists in 2024 with Pittsburgh. That's something to keep in mind. When he was in Baltimore, he had more solo tackles. Now coming to Pittsburgh, picks up more assists. But that's not always a killer or kicker for me. Sometimes I like to say like he's in the mix more. You know what I mean? If you can just get more assisted tackles, even though they're not scored the same, that doesn't really drop you too much in my rankings. I kind of look at more collective tackles than I really do at combined in assists. But still an interesting, stat. Let's see if that continues. That definitely, no doubt about it, drops points in IDP, going from solos to more assists. But Patrick Queen is the banger there in Pittsburgh. They're supposed to have Peyton Wilson be a 3-down linebacker this year. Don't think it affects his production at all. Peyton Wilson's also, we'll mention him later, but I don't think that he's anything that Patrick Queen has to worry about. It's not like he has Roquan Smith there. So again, Patrick Queen, the epitome of an LB2. You know what you're going to get. The proof is in the pudding. We've seen it now. He is as solid as they come. Only 25 years old. So Patrick Queen, as much as he probably doesn't have that LB1 upside like he did in Baltimore, now in Pittsburgh, he's a safe LB2. So perfect guy to get if you're just trying to look. He's 22 on this list. If you're in a sleeper draft, you can get all your offense out of the way, come back, and you know what you're going to get with Patrick Queen. So great value there. Great dynasty linebacker. Moving on is Quay Walker. Quay Walker, I had at 26. Axton had at 24, so we were pretty close on this one. Now, Quay Walker is another guy who's a big question mark. There's two ways you can look at this. So he had a crazy year 2 years ago in 2023. He was averaging 8 tackles per game. He had 2.5 sacks and 7 tackles for loss in only 14 games. So really would have had his career year. Ended up missing three games that 2023. Over the last 2 years, he's missed 7 games combined. So health is definitely a question mark with Quay Walker. 2025 is going to be his last year in his contract. Green Bay did not pick up, at least yet, his 5th-year option. They still may re-sign him, but that's a question mark we have right now. We know they have Edgerrin Cooper, Tyron Hopper. I know Axton's big on Isaiah McDuffie, a guy who, when he gets in the mix, he's definitely a solid tackler, solid in coverage. He does not miss. This is McDuffie, of course. McDuffie does not miss many tackles, so they have options there. They really don't have to force their hand, which is probably why they didn't pick up the 5th-year option. They really want to. It's a smart move, see what Quay Walker does this year. Granted, it might backfire if he balls out. They might have to re-sign him for more money, but that's probably a risk they want to take, and they would rather do that than pay him and fizzle. So Quay Walker, I don't think obviously we had Edgerrin Cooper in the first part of linebackers. So Quay Walker, we don't view him as the LB1 here. He is the LB2, and he could return to form and be the LB1. There's no question about it. Edgerrin Cooper has that rushing the quarterback ability. So if Quay Walker can get healthy, get back to form, maybe he is the tackles guy, and Edgerrin Cooper is more of like rushing the passer on the outside on the edge. So A lot of ways this could go, but we cannot ignore the upside. Quay Walker still only 25 years old. And sometimes in the contract year, you show up, you do big things. So Quay Walker is not somebody you can bank on, but somebody maybe as your LB3, LB, 2 if you're really confident. I'd like to prefer him as an LB3. Say if you're starting 2, he's your bench option. You see how it goes. You can always drop and pick up somebody else if things don't work out for Quay, but still deserves to be on a team out there. Don't give up on him just yet. See how it goes at least the first couple weeks of this year. See if he returns to form, banging and getting those tackles. And I think he has a good shot too. So Quay Walker still somebody who's kind of passed over, bad taste in our mouth. Moving on to number 24, we've got a young guy. Ivan Pace Jr. Was solid. He's only 24 years old, solid in the 10 games played. The tackles were a little down, 7.2, but he did have 3 sacks, 7 tackles for a loss, and an interception. Minnesota, one thing I like about Ivan Pace is I had him ranked high last year, 2023, as an undrafted rookie. Did great things, was supposed to be undersized, but the tackles, the sacks, he was just a playmaking machine, and not even somebody who, I like to look at the tackles, and I play in tackle heavy leagues. Ivan Pace would have scored better in big play scoring. He's one of those guys, kind of like a Frankie Louvu there in Washington. These guys are better at big play scoring than tackle heavy. But Ivan Pace, one thing that he's got going for him is the defense really did not change there. Still have Blake Cashman. He's probably going to miss a few games. Ivan Pace, maybe he misses a few games too. Has not proved healthy yet to this point in his career, but he's a banger. Like him a lot, a multifaceted player. You still got Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel on the outside, which is good for me. Let Ivan Pace bang in the middle. I don't want to see him be used as an edge rusher. That's volatile for me. If he doesn't get that sack, he's probably going to hurt you then. But the fact that they have great pass rushers on the outside, Ivan Pace can kind of do his thing in the middle, take a little bit less responsibility off him, and let him rack up the tackles. And I really do think if he gets that opportunity, maybe if Blake Cashman eventually moves on, I know he's got another year in his contract. But Ivan Pace, we're talking about a guy who's 24, bad taste in our mouth with the injuries last year, but he could easily ascend up this list. So don't give up on Pace yet. Still respect him, respect the youth. I still think he's going to have a great career. And I do think that he'll get re-signed eventually in Minnesota. Don't know how many years, but I do think they want to keep him together. So Ivan Pace Jr., great player, great trajectory, still yet to come. Moving on, at 25, we have Azeez Al-Shaair, still only 27 years old, and I was the bad cop here. I had him ranked at 31. Axton had him at 18, which brings him to a median here of 25. So Azeez Al-Shaair, we can put this two ways. We can say he's 27 years old. He was not healthy this year. He had 163 tackles and 2 sacks in 2023. Things are looking great for Azeez Al-Shaair. But last year he had a big step back from that career year in 2023. He dealt with not only injuries, but a suspension. I believe he was, suspended for 3 games for a hit to the head, which was controversial. Some people called him a very dirty player because of it. That's maybe how he's remembered right now. So he just came out and said he was in a bad mental space last year. And maybe we just kind of forgive that as Azeez Al-Shaair will return to form. Keep in mind, he has not really been that walking bomb, a full-time player before 2023 when he got to Houston. I know he was kind of, put in the back burner with Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner in San Francisco, and I liked him. There was one of those guys that when he had an opportunity, he balled, he got the tackles. So, when he went to Houston, he finally figured it out, had that career year, but last year things weren't going so well. Even with before the injuries, wasn't putting up the same kind of tackles that he had been before in that career year. Again, we've got Henry 2020, Christian Harris. This is a loaded linebacking core in Houston. I do expect from the familiarity that with D'Amico Ryans that Azeez Al-Shaair's spot is safe. But really, who is he at this point? Is he the guy who's going to give you 9-10 tackles a game? Or is he a 6 or 7 kind of tackle player like he was last year? Will he stay healthy? Is the suspension still in his head? They've got solid backups. I think he has more upside than risk right now, but we have to call a spade a spade. There were cracks in the foundation here for Azeez Al-Shaair. He's somebody who was, I believe, a top 10 linebacker in my own rankings last year, and he can easily ascend. Only 27 still. So I'm kind of the bad cop here. And, of course, Axton has him ranked higher. He can tell you all the good things. He had a career year. He was finally given that opportunity, and he balled. So it wasn't just fluky when he got in as a starter in San Francisco. He actually made good on that in Houston as well. And let's see what he can do this year. Definitely somebody who deserves to be on a roster, maybe even someone you send out a trade for if you're a big Al-Shaair fan. I definitely, like I said, think he can return to form and be a top 12 linebacker as soon as this year, of course. But there are kind of obstacles in his own way that we'll see, how he bounces back. So that was my dropping him to 31. And maybe 31 is a little bit low now that I look at the numbers. But still, we can, go back and forth. And this is, two sides of the coin on this one. Moving on, we have number 26, Robert Spillane, who actually had a career year last year. It felt like 2023 was the better year for Spillane, but as far as tackles go, last year was his, big career year with 157 tackles. 91 were solo, 66 were assisted. He did have 2 sacks, did have 7 pass defense, and 2 interceptions. So that's, it was nice to see he wasn't just a tackles player. But the thing for me, I have him ranked at 30. Axton had him at 21. For me, it's because he's not in Las Vegas anymore, right? So Robert Spillane goes to now New England. They still have Jelani Tavai there. They still have Christian Ellis. They brought in, I believe, I forget, a third linebacker who had track record, but when was the last time a New England Patriots linebacker was an LB1? Maybe when Gerard Mayo was there. It's been some time. So I'll be the first to say it. 3 years ago, when Bobby Okereke left Indianapolis, he went to the Giants. I said, when's the last time a Giants linebacker was good? Well, Okereke was great. Did not miss a snap as far as, and I believe was top 3 in tackles his first year in New York. So things can be fizzled, things can be busted at one year or not. New England's going to have a top linebacker as far as IDP. I just don't know if it's going to be with Robert Spillane. This is a new territory for him. Don't know if they're going to rotate guys. Robert Spillane they brought there for a reason. 3 down guy. I still believe that, but still, Jelani Tavai was the LB1 last year and really didn't, kind of fizzled. We expected more out of him. So until really New England has a solid linebacker one for IDP, I'm not really going to buy into the Kool-Aid. Robert Spillane, looking back at it, when he started with Pittsburgh, wasn't that type of linebacker. Went to Las Vegas, was that type of linebacker. And again, this is one guy that I'm not going to have really going to try to draft this year. He is not in Vegas anymore, so I'm just not going to take the risk. He may ball out. He may have 140 tackles or more, and I'm just going to watch it happen from the sidelines. So Robert Spillane, to me, this is somebody, if you had it when the good times were, rolling, great. Send him out and trade right now. Try to upgrade maybe him and another defensive player for a top 18 linebacker. But I'm not buying it with Robert Spillane. I see writing on the wall there, the warning signs. I am buying it with number 27, though, and that is Lavonte David. So in Dynasty, when it comes to IDP, to me is a big thing is how much can I depend on you the first year? And we have to assume this is Lavonte David's last year. Granted, we said that last year. So who knows how long he's going to keep playing, and he was productive again. So he's going to return in 2025 for at least one more year. 35 years old, that's a big hurt in Dynasty. But again, we see linebackers come and go all the time. Undrafted guys, Zaire Franklin, Jamie and Sherwood, they pop up out of nowhere. So, if you have Lavonte David, that's fine, and make sure you're looking for that next man up, that guy who's not really a household name that's available in free agents to protect yourself with Lavonte David. But if you can do that, that makes Lavonte David even more valuable to your team. We actually saw him last year record 5.5 sacks, which I believe was his second most since his second year in the NFL. Very impressive. Still had 122 tackles, 3 forced fumbles, and an interception. He does not need 140 tackles to make his noise. So in 2025, expect it to be the last year. Again, like we've said that before, but You really, if you can get one more solid year out of Levante David, a healthy year, then I think the pick was worth it, and you'll reset next year at the position. But Levante David, don't ignore guys that are old but can still get it done, because again, another guy, Bobby Wagner, we probably said last year was his last year. He's suiting up again. You go back, you think of like the Gerard Mayos, London Fleshers. These guys played till they were late 30s, and they can still get it done. Sometimes Father Time doesn't hit these linebackers, some of them like Wagner's and those guys, as much as it does at other positions. So Levante David, still big fan on him. Before we move on, I just wanted to mention, right now we are doing a promo with Fast Draft. If you haven't heard of Fast Draft, check it out. Go to the App Store, download this app. You can do best ball leagues. They have IDP leagues. There is one that I started with Axton. He and I joined a league. It's called D Up. That's a 6-man IDP. How it scores is you draft 6 IDP players. It takes your top 4 scoring players of each week to make your starting lineup. It is $10 to join. You can do $5 leagues, $10 leagues. D Up was $10. There are 10 people in that IDP league. It takes literally under 10 minutes to draft, and then you can win money down the line, big money. So if you have not already, check out Fast Draft. And actually, when you deposit up to $50, they will match you up to $50. And use my promo code plus Johnny when you deposit your $50, and I'll get some money in my pocket too. So I appreciate it. Check out Fast Draft. It was a fun time drafting. All right, starting at number 28, we have linebacker Tyrese Knight. Tyrese Knight, for all you young guys out there, Tyrese Knight is the guy who's going to fit your mold. He is only 24 years old, played in 16 games and started 9 of them. Week 9, when he got deemed the starter, they had Jerome Baker there for a while. They had Tyrell Dodson, who was pretty productive there for a while, but they moved on. In Week 9, they gave Tyrese Knight the starting position next to Ernest Jones, and he did great. His last 8 games, he averaged 8.1 tackles per game. He had 3 double-digit tackle games, which is always a nice barometer to see. I want guys who can get 10 or more tackles, and he did it 3 out of those last 8 games. So very impressive there. This is a guy who is a solid tackler, seems to be getting 7 or more tackles consistently, and that's kind of what we need him to do. We know he's not Ernest Jones exactly. Ernest Jones is the LB1 to own there. Axton mentioned him in the top 18, but it doesn't matter if it's Bobby Wagner and Jordan Brooks, Ernest Jones and Tyrell Dodson. Seems like the number 1 and 2 linebackers there, they're always on the field. They produce. So when it comes to Tyrese Knight, I think eventually he might even be that LB1. He definitely could be, and if there's an injury to Ernest Jones, the big things could be in his horizon. So Tyrese Knight, it's in a great spot right now. You're an LB2, and you can still get great production for IDP. This is one of my favorites. I actually had him ranked pretty low here. Let me see where I had Tyrese Knight. I had him at 21. Axton had him at 34. And I get it, pros and cons. He has a long way to go. He was productive already in his rookie year. I heard some rumblings about him in training camp. Heard that if he gets a shot, he could be a great linebacker there. So he seized his opportunity. Young guy, 24 years old. This is somebody who I think is going to be here making noise for a while. Seattle, they like to keep their linebackers. I know they traded. They lost or they got Ernest Jones there, back and forth. But Bobby Wagner, they had him for a while. Jordan Brooks, they had him for a while. So Tyrese Knight is in a great spot. I hope they have him for a while because the Seattle linebackers 1 and 2 always seem to do well for us for IDP. So excited about Tyrese Knight. Love him, not only in Dynasty, but redraft as well. So really solid linebacker to have. Maybe somebody you want to send a trade for and acquire, because I think he's only going to go higher and higher in these rankings as years pass. Looking at LB29, we have Bobby Wagner, 34 years old, still 132 tackles and 2 sacks in 2024. I have him ranked personally lower than Levante David. Of course, that's how the rankings reflect. But Bobby Wagner, I have him as 20. Actually, I have him one higher than Levante David. I have him as 23. Axton had him as 33. Age is huge here. I'm sure if I had Axton here, he would, tell me he's 34 years old. He actually, and I'll back Axton's point up, the second half of the season, Bobby Wagner only averaged 6.3 tackles, which is horrid. It's actually honestly not even really bankable. It's not even basically startable, especially if you're in a shallow IDP league. So Bobby Wagner, we have worries about him. But on this, the contrast of it, he started the year strong. In his first 5 games, he had 56 tackles and 2 sacks. But yeah, again, last 12 games, 76 tackles and no sacks. That's an average of only 6.3. So it's really, good cop, bad cop here. Averaged over 10 tackles a game the first 5 games, and then 6.3, which is not good. But I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I still think he's a solid linebacker too. The only problem here is when you look at a guy like Levante David, somebody else, an older head like Demario Davis, like these guys are getting in the backfield, and Bobby Wagner really isn't that player. He did have 2 sacks last year. That's something to write home about, but he's really going to have to be a bankable volume tackler to make good on his price tag. So Bobby Wagner, again, and somebody that you have to assume this is his last year. Maybe you get lucky, and who knows? Maybe he can get back to that 8.5, 9 tackle average, which would be nice. Things really haven't changed there in Washington. Frankie Louvu, Axton talked about him. He's not, to me, a threat. I like having Frankie Louvu next to Bobby Wagner when I'm a Wagner owner because Wagner's just going to soak up those tackles. Louvu, let him rush the passer, let him get his 5 or 6 sacks. But if I had to pick one of those, it's easily Bobby Wagner. Especially if he can, up that tackles per game a little bit, get back to his career average. And I do think he definitely can. I'm not sure what exactly was holding him back the second half of last year. But I do think Bobby Wagner is somebody who you can still trust, still pay a low price tag for. And guess what? If he's putting up 10 to 12 points only, you make the decision to move on later. But for right now, if you're slim pickings, we're talking about linebackers coming up on 30. This is a really low price tag for Bobby Wagner. So hopefully he can get it done for at least one more year. Still like him. Moving on, Blake Cashman at linebacker 30. 29 years old, still has hopefully a couple good years left in him. He's signed through 2026, so he'll have this year and next. He had a career year last year in 14 games. And, between the last 2 seasons in Houston, he only played 13 games. Last year, his first year in Minnesota, 14 games. So he has missed 7 games these past 2 seasons. So a little bit of a question mark when it comes to health. But when he's on the field, he's pretty consistent. He's averaging 8 tackles per game. He had 5 double-digit tackle games last season. 5 out of 14 is a pretty good stat. That's over a third, ladies and gentlemen. So Blake Cashman, don't give up on him. The last 6 games, I did a bet show with Axton last year, and we were talking about Blake Cashman heavy towards the end of the season. He had, in his last 6 games, 57 tackles, almost an average of 10. He had a sack and a half and 2 tackles for loss. So somebody on the reverse, not like Bobby Wagner, who started the year hot and ended cold. Blake Cashman started good and ended better. So, when you look at Ivan Pace there, again, that not much has changed. It's Ivan Pace and Blake Cashman. They can ball together. I mean, Blake Cashman, when he was there getting his 8-10 tackles later in the season, Pace was there. Obviously that they lost Cameron Bynum, Josh Metellus, the D-backs will shift up a little bit. Let's see if that affects Blake Cashman and Ivan Pace, but I don't think it will. I think Blake Cashman, we know who he is. He's a banger in the middle there. Again, they have Andrew Van Ginkel. They have Jonathan Bernard. They still have basically the same front line and linebacking core, so we can kind of gauge this linebacking core well. Blake Cashman, we don't really need him to get to the quarterback as much, not really banking on it, so that's nice. If he gets 1 or 2 sacks, great. We're here for the tackles. I think Blake Cashman is going to be used in that kind of same role, be the banger in the middle. And if his body can hold up and he can play 16 or 17 games, he's easily going to return good value for you here. So 29 years old, definitely has a couple good ones left, and it kind of has been on the ascension the last couple of years. So maybe somebody who kicks it into higher gear later in their career. Moving on to linebacker 31, we have Jermaine Pratt. And Jermaine Pratt is in a little bit of a question mark here. I had him at 38. Axton has him at 29. And for me, I can see the upside. He's still signed. He's still on the team. He's still a starter as of right now. Jermaine Pratt did tremendous last year. He had, 148 tackles, I believe. Let me make sure. 142 tackles, 81 solos, 61 assists, still had 6 pass defensed, 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles. So Jermaine Pratt, I mean, by no questions asked, he had his career year last year. 29 years old, maybe he runs it back at 30 all the way until 31, 32. But right now he has requested a trade. They brought in a rookie linebacker there, Demetrius Knight, and writings on the wall for Jermaine Pratt. At least that's how he sees it. I'm not exactly sure. Beat writers say that this Knight rookie can be the green dot, can be inside linebacker with Logan Wilson, and maybe that does push Jermaine Pratt out. But like I said, he's still the starter right now. Rookie linebackers sometimes take a while to get going. Maybe it's a Tyrese Knight effect where he gets a couple opportunities due to injury and seizes the job. That would be bad news for Pratt. So there's definitely volatility to Jermaine Pratt. But if he can start there again, we know who he is. He's a banger. All his career, he's gotten celeb shots in the starting lineup and just gotten tackles. Not really counting on much else there. Sacks, not really a sacks kind of guy. But that's okay. It's easier to gauge tackles than it is sacks. So Jermaine Pratt, even if he does move on, if he signs somewhere else, we saw Akeem Davis Gaither, who's not on this list but went to Arizona. He was another good linebacker there in Cincinnati. He's not there anymore. So maybe the room has gave Jermaine Pratt a new breath of fresh air, less people. Maybe something happens with this rookie. He's slow to develop, and Jermaine Pratt is a fine LB2 going forward. So bottom line is we're going to see in training camp here what the deal is, if he has his job, if he gets released, if he gets traded. I do think Jermaine Pratt can go somewhere else and be an LB2 and put up similar numbers. So he's a banger. That's what I would like to see. We're not really going swinging high for the fences with sacks. I really don't like to do that with linebackers, and he's a tackles guy. So if he can stay this year and play 16 games and start 16 games, whether it be in Cincinnati or somewhere else as a starter, I think Jermaine Pratt, repeats kind of his success from last year. Moving on to 32, we have one of my favorite linebackers to poach late, Josey Jewell. Josey Jewell's 30 years old, played 12 games last year, had 97 tackles. That's a good average of 8.1. He's the LB1 in Carolina. Very solid when healthy. Again, he has that question mark of health. In Denver, he's missed games. Last year, he's missed games. Probably going to miss games in 2025. If you're smart, you're banking on that. But that's okay because when Josey Jewell's out there, he's performing. If you're in a shallow league, maybe it's somebody that when he gets hurt, you can drop or you can hold on your bench, But like I said, when he's out there, he's in a really a limited room there. They brought in Christian Roseboom. They have Trevin Wallace. I don't think Christian Roseboom is brought there to take Josey Jewell's spot. The Outlaw is the LB1 there. I do like Trevin Wallace as well. He had some flashes, but mostly when Jewell was hurt. So Josey Jewell, another thing about him is he had 3 games towards the end of the year, 3 consecutive games with at least a sack, and 1.5 sacks. And in those 3 games, he also had 10 tackles, and 9. So, almost averaged 10 tackles for those 3 games. When he's healthy, he can get at the quarterback. He can stop the ball carrier. He's a solid linebacker. I'm not too worried about age. This is not somebody I'm looking at and saying I'm having for the next 3 or 4 years. I'd say if you can get a repeat of 1 or 2 more years of what Josey Jewell did last year, you're winning. But definitely somebody who deserves to be on a roster. If he's healthy, I'm throwing him out there. The Outlaw is a good linebacker there, so love him in IDP. Moving on to linebacker 33, we have Kenneth Murray. So Kenneth Murray, I had him ranked at 33. Axton has him ranked at 38. Kenneth Murray is not somebody who's one of my favorite linebackers. He's not a flashy linebacker. His career high in tackles is just over 100. But Kenneth Murray, I really like 2 things about him. That he's kind of got by his health injuries, and he's still young. And I love the landing spot here in Dallas. We no longer have Eric Kendricks. Eric Kendricks had 133 tackles last year and 3.5 sacks. So basically, I'm looking at Murray and saying, "Hey, Kenneth Murray, can you be Eric Kendricks here?" Demarion Overshown is going to start the year hurt. They might start Maris Liafau next to Kenneth Murray, but I think this is his backfield. He's going to get the keys to the defense. I think that if he plays a full 17 games, easily will beat his 100. I want to say 108 high of 108, 110 tackles, whatever that number is. But Kenneth Murray, last season, he had 95 tackles, 3.5 sacks in 14 games. only 14 games for Tennessee. Two double-digit tackle performances, only 26 years old. Even with DeMarvion Overshown healthy, Eric Kendricks was getting his as far as tackles and sacks. So at some point, Overshown, whether it's Thanksgiving, Christmas time, when he gets back from his ligament knee injury, he's going to be a presence in that linebacking room. But that's going to be a while down the road. So Kenneth Murray, I think, can be somebody who hits over 120 tackles here. The sacks have always been part of his game. So I would call him a high upside LB2, somebody who is lower in the rankings, bad taste in our mouth, not really a huge track record. But I think this is a perfect storm for Kenneth Murray to become a strong LB2. So like him a lot. Moving on to 34. We have Peyton Wilson from the Steelers. Now, Peyton Wilson is a second-year player, 25 years old, really hasn't, got a starting job to say. In Pittsburgh, he was the second linebacker there, but only played about 45% of defensive snaps as an average on the year. I had him ranked all the way at 49, and Axton had him at 20. So this is one of our biggest discrepancies. And there's two ways you can see Peyton Wilson. So Peyton Wilson, he's a straight dog as a player. He's quick. He's aggressive. He had knee injuries. He's overcome them. I love the pick by Pittsburgh. I'm a Pittsburgh guy. So I like him personally. 78 tackles last year, a forced fumble, interception, 3 tackles for loss. Again, only 45% of the defensive snaps. So let's say, hey, if he can kind of double that, get it close to 90%, maybe he's going to have 180 tackles. Well, I don't think that's really the right thing to ask, because in Pittsburgh we really don't use 3 down linebackers, multiple of them. There is going to be one, and that's Patrick Queen. And to me, Peyton Wilson may be a great player down the road for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh likes to hold their players, pretty solid on linebacker retention. So I think that Peyton Wilson will have his time, but I just don't think it's anytime soon. Certainly don't think it's when Patrick Queen is healthy. You really don't have LB1 in Pittsburgh to make much noise until Patrick Queen defied that. I think it's too much to ask an LB2 to make noise for fantasy purposes. But again, if Patrick Queen goes down in injury, then I think that Peyton Wilson is the next man up and could be a spark plug, could be electric as a linebacker here in Pittsburgh. So definitely age is on his side. 25 years old. He showed up, had a modest year last year, and we're expecting a bump up in his second year. But keep in mind, with the alignment of the Pittsburgh defense, I don't know that he's going to get enough snaps. Maybe it's 50-60% this year. Maybe it's even more, and I'm wrong. But another guy that's until he's going to do that, I'm not going to really show him that much respect in fantasy. So definitely a solid real life player and a solid IDP player too. But I just do think he's kind of blocked right now to make that impact. But in Dynasty, maybe in 3-4 years you hang on to him. Maybe keep him on your watch list, and he can have value again. And maybe Queen gets hurt, and he's the LB1 there. So could go a lot of ways with Peyton Wilson. Moving on to 35, we have Demario Davis, 36 years old, now getting to be a pretty old head. I had him at 39. Axton had him at 30, so he's actually higher than me. For me, one of the things that knocked me down to 39 is I can almost promise that this is his last year. Even though he's shown little signs of rust, he did restructure his contract. Still only has 1 year, but I do think this is it for him. But even if we can have one more year, I think it's going to be a solid year. Demario Davis definitely deserves to be on this list, because he's somebody that, like I said, I need production now, and he's definitely going to prove that. Outside of Demario Davis, I'm not really worried about any rookies they drafted last year. Pete Werner has been kind of a letdown since his nice first year in New Orleans. So Demario Davis is my best way I can explain him is there's 2 players, right? Think of Demario Davis, and then we think about a guy who is on the top 18 page in Frankie Louvu. They're kind of very similar players as far as scoring. When it's all said and done, Demario Davis gets more tackles. Frankie Louvu gets more sacks. We're accustomed to seeing Louvu get 6, 7, 8 sacks. But last year, Louvu only had 90, I want to say 97 tackles, so didn't even hit 100. If it comes down to it, if I have to choose between Demario Davis for 1 year and Frankie Louvu for 1 year, I get it. Frankie Louvu in Dynasty maybe more because he's younger. He's 27 years old. But, I like to play it doesn't matter, dynasty redraft. I'm playing for this year. I want to win this year. And Demario Davis, to me, I'm going to take him every time. He doesn't have to get the 6, 7, 8 sacks. If Frankie Louva doesn't get his 7 or 8 sacks, he's hurting you. If he doesn't get a sack in a game, he's hurting you. Demario Davis, last season, I believe, had 6.5 sacks, which was the most for inside linebackers. This season, he only had 2. But again, if he can get back to 3 or 4 sacks with 120 tackles, he's a better scorer than Frankie Louvu. So I think this is a real diamond in the rough. Um, doesn't seem on slowing down. He's had 120 plus tackles over the last 2 seasons, 15 sacks over the last 3 seasons. Granted, like I said, only 2 last season, but that means there was 13 from in those 2 years before that. So very impressive. Again, maybe like a Levante David, somebody who had 5.5 sacks last year. Father Times hits some linebackers hard, but some of these guys are outliers, and I do think that Demario Davis is one. So again, why jump for Frankie Louva when you can get tackles in a blended tackles and sacks from Demario Davis? So love him a lot. Definitely think he still needs to be owned, rostered. Not somebody who you need to send a trade out for, but hey, if you have Peyton Wilson and some rookie linebackers, you need somebody now. Maybe Demario Davis is that guy. And finally, our last linebacker here at 36, we have the injured DeMarvion Overshown. So Overshown, I believe he tore every ligament in his one knee. He's only 24 years old. He's going to miss majority of this year. Probably doesn't come back till maybe Thanksgiving, the holiday season. But in 13 games, he wasn't even projected to be the starter until later in training camp. He had 13 games played, 90 tackles with 5 sacks, so very well-rounded player. 2 double-digit tackle games and 8 or more tackles in 6 out of 13 of those games. So, Overshown wasn't like a 4 tackle and a sack guy, and that's how he gets his flowers. He's going to get you 8 or more tackles and maybe a sack. He had an interception for a touchdown, past the fence. Like, this is a dog. This is somebody who really came out of nowhere. As a tackles guy, I wasn't really putting too much heat on him, but I was wrong in this sense. So DeMarvion Overshown, solid player. Granted, redraft, he's going to be lower on the rankings because he won't play majority of the year. It may take some time to get back to form for him, but he is a well-rounded linebacker. I think in Dynasty, when you're talking 24 years old, coming off a major injury, is not too much of a concern. So the production he was putting up, we have to at least pay him attention and give him his flowers in that regard. So DeMarvion Overshown, solid player. They bring in Kenneth Murray next to him. I think Kenneth Murray's the guy to own, but still, DeMarvion Overshown deserves his praise. Well, I just wanted to say thank you for tuning in to the Linebackers Part 2. Check out our website at IDP Plus. So that is it for the top 36, or I should say 19 through 36. Axton did 1 through 18. I did 19 through 36. But I did mention I had some honorable mention linebackers that didn't quite make the list from our rankings, but I do think need some attention. The first one being Quincy Williams. Quincy Williams had a down year last year, 17 games played them all, only had 116 tackles with 2 sacks. Did have 3 double-digit tackles games. He's still only 28 years old. C.J. Mosley's gone. Jamian Sherwood's the guy there to own, but maybe Jamian Sherwood isn't who we think he is. Maybe he fizzles a little bit, and maybe something was just wrong with Quincy Williams. So now Mosley's gone. It's going to be Quincy Williams and Jamian Sherwood. Maybe Quincy Williams kind of returns to form. So definitely not saying trade for him. Go add him right now. He's not very valuable, in people's minds right now. But if he starts the season with double-digit tackle games, the first 2 I'm buying in. So Quincy Williams kind of fell down the list over the last year. Somebody who I'm very high on, I had ranked as 32, but did not make the list for consensus rankings, was Jalen Carleys from Indianapolis Colts. Was a safety out of Missouri. He got a start last year. He's only 23 years old, so if he can put this together and be a starter, he's penciled in as a starter right now next to Zaire Franklin. He's making the switch from safety to linebacker. He got a start last year in 2024. I'm sure for all you deep IDP heads, you know the name. In that one start in replace of EJ Speed, Carleys had 10 tackles. Again, he's listed as a starter right now. EJ Speed is no longer there. It doesn't matter seemingly who the 2 linebackers are in Indianapolis. They just produce. So If Jalen Carleys can take this momentum and hold the starting job, this is definitely someone who I'm drafting in Dynasty and redraft late. Eric Kendricks is a free agent. Mentioned him before. He's 33 years old now, had 137 tackles and 3 sacks for the Cowboys last year. Could land on his feet somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where that would be, who needs a linebacker that much. But Eric Kendricks, if he does land on his feet somewhere and if he's starting, this is definitely a guy who was a top 10, top 12 linebacker last year. So the sacks were there, the tackles were there. Don't forget about Eric Kendricks. Doesn't necessarily need to be rostered. He's a free agent, but keep notes on him. And finally, somebody who would have made our list but is out the whole 2025 season coming up, and that is Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from Cleveland, which means Carson Schlesinger gets the bump to the number 1 linebacker spot right now. JOK had a phenomenal year last year when he was healthy, finally put things together. 6 out of the 8 games played last year, he had 7 or more tackles. He had 3 sacks in 8 games, but he, again, is missing the entire season in 2025. So if you have him, he's going to be a stash. He's not going to be talked about and redrafted all this year. He's not going to play. So, it slid him down enough out of our rankings in Dynasty. And the big thing is, how does he come back from that neck injury? If he's back to being JOK, who we know at 25, only 25 years old, yeah, he's going to be a great Dynasty linebacker. But to me, it's a far from certain that he will return healthy coming off that neck injury. So JOK, hate to see that, but don't forget about him. And 2 rookies I wanted to mention. I'd mentioned Jihad Campbell from Philadelphia. He's brought in to kind of be the LB2 next to Zach Bond. We know that Nakobe Dean's going to start the year hurt. So out of Alabama last year, Jihad Campbell had a great season, 117 tackles with 5 sacks. Again, I do kind of think he will start as kind of like an edge rusher. Don't think he'll be a straight up middle linebacker who's just going to bang and get the tackles at first. But I did wanted to mention him. He did not make the list, partly because we haven't seen him yet, and partly because there is Nakobe Dean there. Who knows how this is going to shake out? But Jihad Campbell, somebody who definitely deserves to be rostered, big upside. And finally, Nick Martin from the San Francisco 49ers. A lot of people thought that D Winners, this might be his coming out party this year. They lose Dre Greenlaw to Denver. But I'm here to tell you that's far from certain with D Winners, because Nick Martin, the rookie out of Oklahoma State, looking at his college numbers, bomb, man. 2024, he only played 5 games. He was hurt, but he did have 47 tackles and a sack. And, let's just say 5 games played is about a third of the season. He was going to have 140, 150 tackles. That's crazy. And I'm looking like, was that fluky? Well, the year before in 2023, he had 140. This is a full season, 140 tackles, 6 sacks, and 2 interceptions. So definitely Nick Martin is somebody that deserves attention, deserves to be on a team, especially if you're looking for that next man up for 8-10 years. I think they kind of found a diamond in the rough here at linebacker, and I'm not sure he's even in the rough. He's definitely going to be a household name. Definitely somebody who had a phenomenal collegiate season, and they're missing Dre Greenlaw now. They don't have him. Maybe it's D Winners, maybe it's somebody else, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Nick Martin and he comes in and balls there next to Fred Warner. So those were 2 rookies I wanted to mention. Thank you to all you viewers and listeners. Check out our IDP site, idpplus.com. Become a subscriber. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And make sure you see part 1 if you missed it from Axton at Axman IDP. Until next time, we will catch you on the IDP Plus network.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.